Deficit irrigation is the deliberate under-irrigation of a crop to get the most out of every drop of water and maximize profits. If you farm in California and your water supply comes from pumping groundwater, there is likely not going to be always enough water available for you to apply the ideal amount of water at the ideal time for full irrigation. If you compare this to traditional or full irrigation, there are two important differences. Full irrigation represents the maximum crop yield per unit of land, but deficit irrigation results in the maximum yield or profit per unit of water. Deficit irrigation is a strategy that intentionally applies less water than the crop requirements and improves the water use efficiency while minimizing yield loss. It's important to note that it doesn't eliminate yield loss. These losses are actually intentional. Deficit irrigation can be classified into multiple categories. In this video, we focus on two techniques, one called regulated deficit irrigation, RDI, and sustained deficit irrigation, or SDI. RDI is a water management strategy that limits irrigation during specific growth stages when crops can tolerate water stress. It deliberately provides crops with less irrigation water than they typically require for full growth. RDI is well researched and particularly suited for orchards and vineyards. Numerous studies have demonstrated that RDI can optimize water use efficiency without significantly compromising yield. Since different crops have distinct water-sensitive stages, precise timing is critical to ensure optimal growth and yield. Additionally, while applying water stress can enhance water use efficiency, it must be carefully controlled to avoid irreversible crop damage. These are the key steps in regulated deficit irrigation. First, you need to identify the growth stages for irrigation. These are the stages where crops can tolerate water deficits without significant yield loss. Next, you need to determine the safe deficit levels for each stage. This involves knowing the crop's drought tolerance during different growth periods. After you do that, you need to measure water deliveries during the irrigation season to ensure precise irrigation and ensure that your system has high distribution uniformity, as poor uniformity can lead to ineffective water deliveries across the field. Distribution uniformity is how evenly applied water is across the field. A field with poor uniformity will have high amounts of water applied in one area and low amounts in the other area. A field with high uniformity will have the same amount of water applied everywhere. The next step is to monitor soil moisture level or plant water status to ensure that the water stress remains within acceptable limits and preventing severe stress that could harm the crop. Lastly, you need to evaluate what you've done. You need to evaluate the water and energy savings and assess crop yield and quality, allowing for adjustments to optimize both resource use and crop performance. Adjusting these levels of deficit irrigation is something that you will do every year and will be based on your experience with managing deficit irrigation. The other method or technique for implementing deficit irrigation is sometimes called sustained deficit irrigation, or SDI. This means giving crops a steady but slightly reduced amount of water throughout the season, typically at a fixed percentage of full crop water requirements. Instead of switching between fully watering and stressing the plants, as you would do with RDI, this method keeps water levels slightly lower, but in a controlled way to make the most of limited water resources. This approach has been explored for various annual crops as a potential way to improve water use efficiency while maintaining acceptable yields. SDI is especially valuable when water availability is consistently limited and growers need to stretch supplies across more acres. The effectiveness of SDI may vary depending on the crop type, soil conditions, and the climate. While some studies indicate the potential benefits, ongoing research continues to explore its suitability for broader application.